All right. Just a few brief things here as people start to tune in a little bit. I don't know how many people we'll have tonight. As I mentioned, I'm going to keep this brief, but I am recording this so that I can hopefully upload it to the YouTube channel afterwards. I saw Coach Lewis Shine, sharing this on social media. Hopefully, he'll pop on at some point. But um, he and I did several of these types of spaces last winter, especially for basketball coaches. Coach Shine works with basketball coaches, and I kind of wanted to start to do a few that were for coaches of all sports. And I figured tonight was a good night to kind of start. I'd always been wanting to do something related to the job search process and also give coaches who were looking for jobs an opportunity to promote themselves a little bit. So for anyone who doesn't know who I am, I'm Bill Vasco. I run XO Coach in the coaching portfolio. I'm also the head softball coach at Frostburg State University, a Division II school in Maryland. I started my career off in college football and college baseball, and did that for about 10 years before I became a high school athletic director, and then got into softball and have been in college softball since 2008. Um, I've done a lot of web design, and about 15 years ago, I wrote an article series on coaching portfolios, and it got a lot of interest. And at one point, I started developing a website to help with coaching resources for coaches in about 2014. And the website's kind of taken off since then, and I've dedicated time to creating a variety of resources, primarily around coaching portfolios, but also resumes, cover letters, the interviewing process, and just tips in general on the coaching profession, both high school and college. So I wanted to hop on tonight. I jotted down a few ideas about things that I wanted to cover tonight. But certainly, if anybody has questions or anything that they'd like me to cover, you can raise your hand at any point and I'll open up your microphone, or you can send me a DM here on Twitter/X, and I'll try to address your question if you have anything. But just a few things. Obviously, this starts to get to be the busy time of the year for both football and also basketball coaches who are starting to look maybe postseason on some of their plans, which is always ironic because in about 2 weeks we'll be ramping up for our season, which opens up February 17th. So it gets to be a little bit of a hectic time. I've had a lot of time these last couple of weeks over Christmas break to develop some new resources and documents for the website. I just uploaded about 1,000 new documents into the website over the last 10 days, sample coaching documents that other coaches have shared with us. My graphic specialist, Taylor Miller, who's an assistant at UVA Wise, went through all of our sample portfolios and split up the documents, and we categorized them by different sections. So there are a lot of new resources there for those members who maybe haven't tuned in for a while or logged in a while. We just uploaded those in the last week or so. Um, Sat down and wrote some new articles, which I've been posting and adding to the blog, which members have access to all of those. And I've been sharing some of those on social media, and just been sharing some of my thoughts and ideas on Twitter a little bit more as I've had some time to do that, just regarding the job search process. And especially, I've been in coaching now almost 30 years. My first year was in 1992, so I guess more than 30 years. Um, it, Hard for me to believe sometimes that I'm closer to the end of my career than the beginning, but just some of the things that I wish I had known when I was a younger coach, when I thought I knew everything, and now looking back, I've been in it for 30 years and I still don't know everything. But just some things to help young coaches out, especially as they get into the profession and are looking for jobs and everything. So a couple of things that I had jotted down. The first one's Canva. I know a lot of coaches are using Canva for a variety of things, whether it's resumes, portfolios, social media graphics. I've been using Canva now for about 3 years, and it's obviously not as powerful as Photoshop, but it's much simpler to use, and you can get a lot of the same things done in a short amount of time. If you're not familiar what Canva is, it's Canva. It's a graphic design um, platform that's web based. You have a free version, and if you are a teacher, you can get the premium version for free. So there are some really good options for having the premium version. And what's nice about Canva is if you have some documents you need to create and you want to use premium, you can just do a 30-day paid version for the premium. But if you're not familiar with Canva, I definitely encourage you to check it out to see the kinds of things that you can create. A lot of the documents that we've been creating for clients, whether it's resumes, mini folios, which we'll talk about, um, portfolio refreshes, um, all of those things we do in Canva. We have a lot of templates on the website for resumes, cover letters, portfolio refreshes, and mini folios that you can, if you're a member, download directly into your Canva account and then edit those. That's another nice feature about Canva is the sharing option. So if you're not familiar, I highly encourage you to check it out. And if you have been using Canva and you're not the best at it, I did do a 90-minute webinar last spring on using Canva to create and edit your documents. It's in the member portion of the website. So definitely a tool that you should be using. At the very least, we create all of our social media graphics for our program. Within that, flyers, camp stuff, everything. It's a really powerful tool, and it gets better and better by the day. So, and if anybody has questions about Canva, I'll open it up in a little bit to see if people have particular questions. But also, you can shoot me a DM here through my Twitter account, and I'll take a look and answer any questions if you're stuck on something utilizing Canva, and hopefully that I can answer. I had a really good question the other day. Somebody sent me an email about coordinator portfolios for football, offensive and defensive portfolios. And most of the portfolio samples that we have in the membership based website are for coaches who are searching for head coaching portfolios. So I kind of look at portfolios in two regards. If you're applying for a head coaching position, obviously your portfolio kind of aligns with what your program manual or staff manual might look like as you become a head coach. So a lot of the things in there about the program development, staff development, roles and responsibilities, those kinds of things. That's pretty cut and dry. And then a lot of times I hear from coaches who are applying for assistant positions and are currently assistant coaches or are graduate assistants looking to get an assistant position, and they're not really sure how to tailor their portfolio when they're not looking to be a head coach yet. And I try to advise them that you still want to start to put together some of your philosophies and thoughts and ideas into a portfolio as if you were going to be a head coach someday. So, for example, if it's a college coach who's looking to be an assistant, what would your recruiting philosophy be? What kind of things would be important for you there? What are your core values? How do you build culture with the players that you coach? So there are still a variety of things as an assistant that you can put into your portfolio, and it helps you start to think about and develop the ideas and philosophies so that if you do decide to become a head coach someday, you've already, kind of thought about some of those kinds of things. When you're applying for an assistant position, obviously you're probably going to want to have a little more um, tactical philosophies in your portfolio because typically um, a head coach is going to interview you and want to know a little bit more, regardless of sport. For example, when I'm hiring young coaches to my staff, I want to know a little bit about their hitting background, positional play, whether it's pitchers, catchers, infielders, outfielders, maybe some of their strength and conditioning background. If they have to help with that aspect of the program. So there's going to be a little more of those types of things in a portfolio for someone who's applying for an assistant position because a head coach is going to want to see those things to understand how you're going to fit into their program and a little less on the program development. So back to my original thought, this coach had asked about, what about a coordinator position? Do you have samples of coordinator portfolios? And we only have one sample of a coordinator portfolio. It's an offensive coordinator portfolio that was one of our very originals from Nathan Bigelow, who was one of our original members back when I was running the Coach Book website. And I went through that particular one, um, and kind of just gave an overview of what was in his particular portfolio that maybe stood out, that was a little bit different, from a head coaching portfolio to a coordinator portfolio. And I'm pulling up those notes here that I sent him. I didn't have that queued up here, but obviously you're going to focus a little bit more on some of the things that are specific to offensive and defense. And what I tried to explain to him, that from a coordinator position, you still don't need a lot of your playbook in that um, portfolio. Yeah, you want to have some basic philosophies on the type of offense or defensive schemes that you're going to run, but it's going to be a little bit more about installation of offenses and defenses, staff roles, how you hire your staff, those kind of things. A lot of coaches want to really break out their playbook when they start to put together their portfolio. And while to some degree you need to have some of those kind of things depending upon what type of interview you may go into, but in your initial portfolio, you don't want to have. I've seen portfolios that were 200 pages long, and that's just too much. I'd recommend a portfolio for any level be 20 to 25 pages long, um, when you're creating that and getting ready to interview for a position. So, coordinator position is kind of in between that assistant and head coaching portfolio. I'm trying to pull up my notes here, and now I can't find them. What I sent to him. So one of the things I've been recommending to coaches as they apply for jobs, I used to tell coaches, this kind of goes into one of my other thoughts with follow up. After you apply for a position, I always told coaches you should send out an introductory email introducing yourself, attach your resume. So if you're applying for an assistant position, send it to the head coach. If you're applying for the head coach position, send it to the athletic director. That way, it really shows your interest in the position, and gets your documents in front of the hiring director. So I've kind of changed my philosophy on that a little bit. I still think you should do an introductory email within a week after applying, just to get your name out there and introduce yourself. Also, attach your resume for easy access. But I feel like if you attach your portfolio, you're kind of showing your hand a little bit, and it doesn't leave anything for when you go to the interview process. So this is where we kind of came up with the idea, and I can't say that we founded or originated this idea, but just looking through some documents that other coaches created, Taylor and I, my graphic assistant, we sat down and said, hey, we need to have an intermediate document between the resume and the portfolio. We came up with the idea of a Minifolio. So a Minifolio is a 3 to 5 page document that kind of highlights the achievements, and philosophies that may be found in your resume that you expand upon in your portfolio, but you just briefly want to touch on them and really highlight them in the Minifolio. And that's a document that you can send out to an AD or a head coach, whoever's in charge of the hiring search, to kind of introduce yourself. And the ones that we've been creating are really graphical in design. We add a lot of photos to them, and Taylor's really great at adding some splashy graphics to really make it pop. So it gives you something that you can send out during the introductory process that kind of, gets the interest of the hiring director to be like, hey, this is somebody we really need to put in the yes pile and consider at least setting up maybe a phone or a Zoom interview or getting on campus for an interview. And then you can use your actual portfolio, which is a little more in depth during the interview process. So if you've been following me, you may have been tweeting a lot about Minifolios and tagging Taylor in those, who does all the design on those. So I did want to cover a little bit about what the difference was between a Minifolio and a portfolio and why that might be important. And again, we have some Minifolio samples if you're not a member yet on Coaching Portfolio that you can take a look at, some basic ones that we've done. And then we do have some templates for our members in there that you can download into your Canva account if you feel pretty comfortable on doing that yourself. We certainly provide that service. It's a little more expensive because there, with all of the graphics and everything, it does take a little more time. But with the coaching portfolio website was designed for coaches to be able to do everything themselves. I know coaches are have a lot of self initiative to kind of do things and figure things out on their own. So that's how the website was kind of created, um, to be able to do those kinds of things on your own. We'll certainly do it for you. Taylor gets all pretty much all the proceeds when she does the mini folios, but again, that mini folio, in my opinion, is a great way to really display what you think sets you apart from other candidates. Um, in a really graphic way, and can be used as an introductory piece to get your name out and information in front of the hiring director. So that's something that we've been really pushing a little bit on social media and on the coaching portfolio website. Um, so that's just a little bit of discussion on some of the mini folio portfolio um, information that we've been doing here. I'm kind of checking my DMs here to see if we have any questions. If anybody has anything they want to pop in and ask here while I take a look at my list of other things that I want to cover, just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll open your microphone up for you. Um, so we talked a little bit about Canva, mini folios versus portfolios, coordinator portfolios, following up. So, just to kind of go along with that, some of the clients that I've been working with, um, I've been telling them to follow up after they apply. Kind of depends upon the timing of when the job was posted. If it's a brand new job that was just posted, I would wait a few days before you follow up after applying and submitting your materials online. And this is typically for a position that's posted, like where you have to do the whole general application either on a college HR department website or a school district HR website. This isn't if you're sending your resume directly to the head coach or athletic director. Like if you see something posted on Twitter and it tells you to send resumes, then you're already kind of doing an introductory thing. And during that time, that would be a great time to send your mini folio along with your resume. But if you're doing the formal application process, that's how our university handles things. It definitely stands out to me that after somebody applies, they send me an introductory email, because a lot of times, depending upon when we're doing a search, I don't always log into the application portal to see who's applied for jobs. So it may be a day or two before I check that. So if somebody follows up with me after applying and lets me know that they have a sincere interest in the position and that they've included their materials in the introductory email, like I look at it right away. Um, so that to me, that gets them to the top of the board. Almost everybody that I've invited for an interview when I have an open assistant position or an open grad assistant position, those people that I interview first through Zoom are those ones who sent me an introductory email introducing themselves and telling me a little bit why they were interested in the position. Email doesn't have to be really long. He just lets them know, hey, I sent my materials in through the application portal. Wanted to let you know that I have a sincere interest in the position. I've attached my resume and also mini folio or portfolio for you to review some of my coaching highlights. Would love to set up a time to talk in more detail. And in my opinion, like I said, if I get 25 applicants for a position, those people who, even if their resume wasn't as strong as some other candidates, if they sent a sincere interest and I think they could help our program, they're going to be at the top of my list to reach out to and contact. That was one of the things that I learned a few years ago when I was going through a period where I was looking for a new head coaching position. One position that I was really interested in that I didn't get, that I just made it through the initial stages with a phone interview. I asked the associate AD what was one thing that I could do better of in future searches. And she told me to really show your sincere interest in the position, that it is the position that's at the top of your list. That's in any of your interviews, any of your contact, reaching out, show them that this position is something that you're extremely interested in if you have an actual interest. Now, if you're sending out applications and materials to every single job that's being posted because you're a little bit desperate for finding a position, then it's going to be a little more difficult for you to reach out and follow up with every single person and show that sincere interest. But when you see a position that you're like, hey, this is one I would really like, make sure they know that. So I took that to heart. So I made sure even if I was applying for several positions, I picked out the top couple that were most important to me that I thought, I'd really would love to have this position. I could see myself being the head coach at this school, and I made sure they knew that I had a really high interest in that position in all of my contact and documents that I sent over. That I was really passionate about that position. So following up is something that I think that um, is one way to make yourself stand out a little bit. Uh, the next up on my list of things here that I wanted to cover, how to present your portfolio. So this is one thing that's kind of changed over time as digital applications have improved. So it used to be, I can still remember my very first portfolio back in 1996 when I was applying for my very first head coaching positions. It was a 3-ring binder. Everything was paper. A couple of my very first positions that I applied for that were head coaching positions, I sent those 3-ring binders through the mail to get to the athletic director. Um, Made them special when I had an interview, tailored them to the process. The print processes have gotten a lot better where if you're going for an interview, go to Staples and get a really nice spiral bound copy of your portfolio or multiple copies to hand out to the search committee. But obviously digitally it's a lot easier, to save your portfolio as a PDF, which is super important, not just your portfolio, your resume as well. I still get several coaches who send me Word documents, and when you send out something that's not saved as a PDF, it's hit or miss what it's going to look like when it gets to the hands of the reader. If I open up certain documents on my phone, the formatting is completely messed up. So always make sure you save everything as a PDF. But it's really easy to save your portfolio as a PDF and email it out. Um, Doing a website version, which is kind of how I have my initial version of my website. So when I do my follow-ups, I send a link to my personal website that kind of goes into a little more detail about who I am as a coach and where I've been and things that are important to me. So I don't have a mini folio now, although it is on my to-do list for this summer to kind of sit down between Taylor and myself and create a mini folio for myself. So right now, when I apply for positions, I would send out the link to my coaching website, and that kind of gives them a little brief introduction to me there. And I have some of my portfolio documents, some of my basic ones on my website so that they can learn a little bit more about me from that. And then when I go to an interview, and I haven't interviewed for a position in 6 years, but in my last interview, I did the spiral bound. I made 10 copies. Um, I took them. I knew who I was going to be meeting with in advance, which is really important. If you're going in for an interview, ask them who you're going to meet with throughout the time that you're there. So this was going to be a day-long interview process on a college campus. So when I got there in the morning, the first person I met with, I was just like, "Hey, can you give these portfolios to everybody I'm going to meet with throughout the day so that they have a chance to look it over before I meet with them?" So that way they could browse through it and then ask me questions based upon what they saw in the portfolio. If you're going into an interview process where you're going to meet with a committee all together and it's just going to be maybe an hour interview, I would wait to hand out your portfolio after the interview process. It's okay to say, during the interview process that, when you're discussing some of your philosophies and ideas, that you're going to give them a portfolio at the end of the interview that's going to go into some other details about some of the things that you're discussing during the interview. Because I think it's important during the interview process to keep your answers to questions somewhat brief, but then hand out the portfolio at the end of the committee interview, because you don't want people that are in a committee interview looking through your portfolio while you're answering questions. So I think it's important if you can get the document into the hands of the people before you meet with them, that's great, so that they can look through it. If you can't, give it to them at the end. If you know that you're going to be meeting with a committee, it's okay to email the athletic director, for example, a copy of your portfolio in a PDF format and ask them to email that to everybody else you're going to meet with in the committee, so that once again, they can review it in advance and tailor some of their questions based upon some of the things that they see in your portfolio. So that's just a few thoughts on presenting your portfolio. Again, that's why I think it's important to have something like a Minifolio or a website to use during the introductory process, introducing yourself after you apply, and saving your portfolio for the actual interview process. And then that way, that portfolio that you bring to the interview is something that you can really tailor to that specific position, that specific program, and that specific school where you're interviewing. I think that really is another way to make yourself stand out, to go through and add logos and the school colors and those kinds of things. Takes a little extra time, but if you've got all of your documents prepared in advance, and especially in a program like Canva, it's really easy to go through and update your portfolio with those extra touches once you get to the interview process. Um, I've got two more things here on my list. I see someone here's requested, so I'm going to open up. Let me take a look here. Jordan is asked to speak. So, Jordan, I got a couple more topics. Jordan, I've opened up your microphone if you have a question that you want to ask.
Yeah. Is it cool if I speak now?
Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
First, my name's Walker. Jordan's my last name.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that,
Uh,
Walker.
well, first of all, I guess I go ahead and advocate for myself. Hi, my name is Walker Jordan. I'm looking for a manager position, undergraduate manager position, either in football or basketball. But my question is, how do I make a good, concise resume under one page? Like one that really pops out. Because I mean, I've made several that are like but I need one that really stands out. But I need it. I don't want to send these resumes to coaches that are multiple pages and then have to scroll through it for everything.
Right. Okay. So, Jordan, where are you creating your resume to start? Like, what program are you using?
I've been using Google Docs because I mean that's what they taught me in high school. No one's ever
Right.
sat through with me how to make a resume. I mean, I've Googled it and I followed the prompts online, but I mean, I'm only 20. It's not like I'm the
Right. Jordan, when we're done here, follow up with me through DM, and I'll send you. I always like to try to help out those who are still in school, and I know that you're just starting out. I'll send you some resources that will help you out to kind of get you started. Um, I would scrap. I mean, don't scrap the Google documents. It's easy to copy and paste your information from a Google document into a Canva account. So I would go and start by creating a Canva account. I'll send you a link to our webinar on how to use Canva, and then I'll send you over some sample one-page resumes that are pretty dynamic and designed beyond the generic and boring ones for young people who are just starting out. I'll send you some samples of what those look like, and then you can play around in Canva. The nice thing about Canva is there are thousands of templates already done where you just plug in your information. So if you follow up with me through DM, I'll send you some information out that can hopefully get you started on something that's a little more dynamic and will stand out.
If anyone would like to help me out, just go to the pin post on my page and retweet it. I'd really appreciate it.
All right, sounds good, Walker.
All right, I'll stay in, but
okay. All right, so just a couple of more things here that I wanted to cover. And again, if just request to speak if you have a question, or shoot me a DM. I'm on my Twitter on my desktop as well. Beyond, here's the top two things I see in terms of mistakes that coaches made. So, we offer a resume review service. 50% of the coaches, as I said, send me resumes that are in a Microsoft Word document or Google document, and they don't save it as a PDF. And again, you do not know how the reader is going to open that. My phone hates Google Documents. If you haven't saved it as a PDF, they look distorted. Um, if you've made your resume in one version of Microsoft Word and I open it in a different version, the formatting may be a little bit different. So always make sure you save things as a PDF. Second biggest mistake, not telling your story. So I've been writing some new articles on creating strong bullet points. 90% of coaches on their resumes, their bullet points talk about their duties and responsibilities. And this was one of the things that Chris Four, who operates Eight Laces and does a lot of resumes for football coaches. He and I have collaborated on a lot of projects and webinars over the last 8 years or so. And this was one of the things that I think he's really great at talking about. And I learned from him. If you are putting something on your resume that every other coach does in the country, it's not good enough to list it unless you expand or elaborate on it and talk about how that makes you stand out or it makes you unique as a candidate, or expand upon it to discuss how it improves the program. So when we talk about telling your story in your resume, your bullet points have to do a great job of showing how you've improved the places where you've worked and how you're going to bring value to a future employer. If you say that you're responsible for practice planning or running positional meetings, um, or doing video breakdowns and cut-ups, well, every single coach in America does that. It doesn't make you stand out. Um, Obviously, for some younger coaches, you want to have some of those things in there to show what kind of skills you have. But instead of just wasting bullet points, at the very least, have a skills section at the beginning of your resume that shows what skills you have, um, that um, that you can bring to the table. If you use a particular video analysis or cut up tool such as Huddle, Synergy, things like that, crossover, you can put that in your skills at the top so that you don't have to repeat it throughout your work history. So list your top skills at the beginning of your resume so that they can see where you're competent, um, and then really get into the information in your bullet points to talk about how you improve the program. Sometimes coaches will ask me, "Well, what if I've been at a bad program?" Well, hopefully you're still doing things that bring value to the program, whether it's on the field or off the field. Did your position group improve in some area? Decrease in turnovers, increase in offensive output or defensive output? Did your position group excel in the classroom? Were you in charge of an academic progress program that increased the team GPA? Did you create a character development program? Did you increase the number of community service activities that your players participated in? There are tons of ways that you can show how you brought value to a program beyond just listing your um, general duties and responsibilities. And I think a lot of coaches really get caught up in showing, well, how many things was I responsible for? And I posted something earlier today or yesterday about young coaches and taking on a lot of responsibility when you're a young assistant coach so that you can get that experience and you have a lot of responsibilities that you were in charge of as a young coach to add to your resume. But again, you don't want to just do it generically on your resume that I was in charge of video cut-ups. Well, how did you make that process more efficient for the offensive and defensive coordinators or for the head coach? How are you able to do those cut-ups and add them to scouting reports? Or if you're working with a high school program, how did you help the players develop highlight videos for the recruiting process? Like, go into more detail about what you did, how you made it better, and if you've got some statistical information to help back it up, put it in the resume. Um, for too long, coaches have been afraid to brag about themselves in your resume, and I was guilty of that for 20 out of the 30 years that I've been coaching. It wasn't until about 10 years ago I was like, you know what? If I'm going to get a job, I got to brag about myself. What have I done in the places that I've been to show what kind of value I brought and how I improved the program? And I tell coaches, for me myself, I have a notebook and I write down thoughts and ideas throughout the year. Anytime we do something new in our program, I write it down. So at the end of the season, I can go back and be like, is this something I want to add to my resume? Is this something I want to expand upon and talk about in my portfolio? Because if you try to sit down and reflect back on the season, you're going to overlook a lot of things. And that was, if you look at my resume, there's a lot of gaps in the early part of my resume. And at this point, I just kind of list where I've worked because I didn't keep track of those kind of things when I was a young coach. So, and it's super important that your most recent position or your most recent two positions are really where you want to focus upon what kind of value you brought when you're applying for a new job. So, if you're currently employed, the off season especially is a great time to reflect, but don't neglect doing that during the season as well, because that's when it's freshest in your mind. You want to journal about those kind of things. If you've introduced something, you know, over the last year or two for our program off the field, we've had some good success on the field. We really wanted to improve our fundraising. We wanted to improve our community service activities. So that's been an area where we've really focused on adding new things to our program and what we do with our players. Our players said that they really wanted to focus on team building activities and improving the culture. So we've implemented some new ideas and thoughts, and I journal about those, and I find ways to add them to my resume and then bring them into my portfolio afterwards. So telling your story, strong bullet points, really go through, take a hard, close look at your resume, evaluate the bullet points um, that you have on your resume and ask yourself, are they strong bullet points or are they weak bullet points? So I spend a lot of time when I do resume reviews for coaches who pay for that service for us, talking a little bit and pointing out where their bullet points are weak and what they can do to improve them. Last thing that I have here on my list, I can probably get through this in about 8 minutes or so. I'm not sure. I'm not sitting in front of a TV, so I'm not sure where we're at in terms of kickoff. But again, if you have a question, just raise your hand or send me a DM here, and I'll open it up here towards the end. I work with a lot of coaches who are probably later in their career, and I don't know what the breakdown is with the type of coaches that we have that are tuning in tonight or who might tune in when I post this recording. But I'm in my early 50s, and I do get a lot of coaches who are looking for a change, maybe have been dismissed, just looking for something new. And they realize they haven't done anything with their resume in a while. They don't have their portfolio, so they reach out to me. We help them get a new resume. We help them build out a portfolio, and it can be tough at times when you haven't looked for a job in a while and you don't have your materials in line, and then all of a sudden you're faced with looking for a job. um, I have some coaches who were looking for a new head coaching position and ended up having to take on an assistant position somewhere because they weren't successful. Like, you never want to stop having your materials ready, because you never know when something might change, whether it be something with your family or just, you were let go or it's time to move on because of changes within the current school that you're at. Always be updating your materials and your information, because when it's time to look for a new job, and I said this, the tweets I sent out was tailored towards young coaches. The time to work on your portfolio is now, not when you're looking for a new coaching position, whether it's an assistant or a head coaching position. But the same thing applies for older coaches. Like, never stop working on your materials. So this little thing here, I tweeted out that one of the things I want to touch on was the failure in the job search. I think coaches who are older, who struggle in the job search process, do so because their materials aren't up to date, and then all of a sudden they're forced to update those things when they have to all of a sudden look for a new job, and they're really not sure how to do it. They're a little bit out of touch with using new technology. A lot of coaches don't even have social media accounts, so they don't have any of those. So one of the first things we do is help them get a social media or Twitter account set up and start posting some things and interacting and connecting with other people. So, you know, if you're older and you're in looking for a new job, um, really spend some time putting together and improving your materials, networking, connecting with other coaches online and at clinics, recruiting events, camps, those kinds of things to get your name back out there. And don't get overly frustrated. I know that when it's a desperate situation and you need a job, be open to any opportunity that might. And I've certainly been in this position myself. Trust me, I know. Um, don't overlook any opportunity. Take a position, and then if something better opens up, it's okay to move forward. I've done that as well, where I had to move on from one position, and I took something I knew it wasn't what I really needed to, or really what I wanted to do, but I needed a job, and then a better opportunity opened up. I mean, that's part of the business these days. But don't get overly discouraged when you experience some failure in the job search, whether you're young or old. We all kind of go through that. Take it as an opportunity to keep working on your materials, um, and branch out in other areas in terms of educational opportunities and networking and connecting with other coaches. And an opportunity will certainly open up. I think a lot of coaches, sometimes coaches that we help a lot through the job search process, whether it's through their materials or through one-on-one consults to kind of map out a plan. Um, they get frustrated because they have really great coaching experience on their resume and had a lot of success. So usually it's one of two things, in my opinion. One, their job application materials aren't very good. Um, I've seen a couple of coaches, even in the last week, who have great accomplishments, state championship coaches, but their resumes are not very good. A really bad resume will not make up, or really good coaching accomplishments won't overcome a bad resume if you can't demonstrate the success that you've had. And the other thing that I see is, I don't know a lot about a coach's personality and what may be out there about them. Sometimes, if you have a personality that can be seen as difficult to get along with, there's only so much you can do if you're applying for positions in an area where people know who you are. Some people come to me and expect me to help them land a coaching position. I can improve your materials. We can map out a plan and I can give you advice. But again, when we talk about looking in the mirror, take a look at why are you looking for a position and what kind of obstacles and challenges are there facing you that you need to overcome with your materials and in the interview process. Maybe it's just a matter you don't interview very well. Maybe your materials are really good, you're a great coach, but you don't interview very well. um, I can say that when I was a young coach, I tended to ramble. If you can't tell, I talk a lot. When I get an audience, interview process, I would spend minutes answering questions, and I realized, you know what, they're probably tuning me out after about 90 seconds. So if you don't interview very well, we have some resources on practicing interviews, which I think is really important. As started to become more successful in getting job opportunities presented to me, it was a direct reflection of how I interviewed, and I spent a lot of time practicing my interviewing, answering questions. I would have somebody ask those questions to me. I would practice them in a mirror on my own. I would set up my phone and just go back and review how I sounded answering questions. So, if you're not having success in the job search, again, sit down, journal, write out some thoughts and ideas on why that might be. Is it the application materials? Is it personality? Is it interviewing skills? Is it a lack of connections? Are you not applying for the right positions? I kind of talk, it's like recruiting. Players want to come into our program, but maybe they're not a good fit for one reason or another. It's the same thing with the job application material. You don't know what the hiring committee or the search director is exactly looking for. All you can do is continue to find ways to really make yourself stand out and make sure they know who you are and keep putting your best foot forward during the process. So I'm going to wrap things up here. I said I would try to be done by 7:45. It's 7:44. So if there's any final questions, again, I'm going to try to do this probably every 2 weeks or so on Mondays around 7 p.m. Typically, I find a good time. It's a good time for me at typically our off day once we get into season and touch upon some topics. And in the future, moving forward, give coaches a little more opportunity to introduce themselves and hop on the mic. Wanted to keep this first one a little bit more brief. Um, Stay tuned for these spaces in the future with myself, or hopefully when Coach Shine starts ramping him up, I'll be on with him a little bit. Um, but if anybody has a question now, request to open your mic, and I'll go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I'm going to tune out here and get ready for the game. It was a pleasure being able to hop on. I love talking about these kinds of things, and at any time you can shoot me some questions. And again, this time of year is really busy for me, from hearing from other coaches who need help, and but also getting ready for my season as well. So I'll try to answer questions best I can. But that's why I like hosting these kinds of things here. It gives coaches an opportunity to ask questions and for me to answer without having to sit and type, which is one of my least favorite things to do. So I don't see anybody requesting to speak here. So again, I'm going to trim this up a little bit, clean it up, and get it on our YouTube channel, and I'll tweet it out if there's something you wanted to go back and re-listen to, or feel free to share that to get the word out to other coaches who maybe didn't tune in. And I appreciate everybody hopping in here tonight and giving a listen to what I have to say. And if you have topics for future spaces that you would like me to cover, just shoot me a DM, and I'd be happy to set that up on the next time we talk. So everybody have a great night. Enjoy the game if you're tuning in, and we'll chat again soon. Thanks.